I'm a typical poacher turned gamekeeper. I was an architect for 15 years, spent 8 years with Dwight Marsh Morgan, which is where I began my off-site journey, if you like. DRMM are big advocates of cross-laminated timber and timber in general, so started with looking at off-site manufacture principally around cross-laminated timber. Moved into residential again with DRMM, and this was actually a Lendlese project where we delivered some of the housing using cross-laminated timber, and then crossed over to the dark side about 5 years ago with Pocket Living. And a key part of my role at Pocket Living was to develop their off-site approach, and as you may be aware, Pocket Living have gone into volumetric in quite a big way. This is a project in Wandsworth, which I'm still very proud of, even though I'm no longer at Pocket, which is a 24-storey full volumetric project. I think it's circa 60% affordable. So answering the question, I've got 10 slides here, much to keep me on track and on time, so I'll try and get through those pretty promptly. I'll start off with a caveat in that Lendlese aren't actually delivering a significant amount of off-site or MMC currently. We are investing in it, but we're not at the point in our cycle where we have meaningfully delivered a lot, so I do feel like a bit of an imposter. Image for Mark of robot-laid brickwork, but the point here is we're not precluding on-site activity. We think there's probably a much better balance than current construction activity suggests around what happens on-site, what happens off-site, and what can happen on-site, whether it's an assembly activity, as Chris articulated, or a more sophisticated way of putting buildings together. And the reason I think this slide is appropriate is because we, as an industry, have been designing, or we used to design for manufacture. We used to design to brick dimensions, but that skill's been lost in many respects, so we need to get it back. So what would make design for manufacture and assembly investable to Lendlese? I mean, it's got to be a business case. We need design for manufacture and assembly to deliver commercial advantage, to justify the significant investment that we're talking about. We're fortunate, we have a pipeline exceeding 30,000 homes, 2/3 of which needs to be delivered in the next 20 years. So we're fortunate in that we have a scale that makes the kind of investment required, we can be confident of our return in simple terms. Health, safety and well-being are key issues for us as a global business. We want to replace as many of the dangerous activities that happen on site as possible. And we think automation and design for manufacture is a key part of doing that. But we also think there is an aspect here which is about the well-being of our customers. We hope to produce buildings where we can guarantee the performance, produce more healthy environments. So customer well-being is another key driver to why we're investing. Sustainability, I'm sure, has been rehearsed a number of times at a number of the talks today. For us, two key issues relating to sustainability are the circular economy and how a DFMA approach can materially contribute to a circular economy, and, as I mentioned before, closing the performance gap, which we're pretty certain does exist with more traditional construction. Skills and training is another key part of our investment case. I'm pretty depressed when I see images like this advertising for the future of construction skills, and they're still showing scaffolding or welding rebar. We want to shift our industry towards a more technology-based industry, and as part of that we need to acknowledge that there's going to be retraining of existing workforce, not just the new workforce coming in. For Lendlese, we work often with local government, or central government indeed, and providing local skills and training is a key part of our offer to those stakeholders. So the ability to retain on-site training and skills is another key driver for why we're perhaps pursuing a DFMA approach as opposed to full volumetric. My last investment point, and this is a nice to have, I think, or a wish list, we would like clearer and more explicit regulatory advantage to make adoption of DFMA a much more widespread thing. We would like it to be a material consideration in planning, or perhaps some sort of building control advantage on the basis that performance is better guaranteed. So to conclude on a couple of deliverable points, there are some fantastic examples of innovation around offsite and DFMA, not least in this room, but we still feel the supply chain is immature in terms of scale. We have ambitions to deliver circa 1,500 homes per annum, and we don't think that the current volumetric supply chain can supply that in a robust way. So the whole supply chain around DFMA and offsite needs to mature quickly for a greater uptake, in my view. The digital tools that now exist within our industry are, I think, probably the single biggest catalyst for widespread adoption of offsite and design for manufacture principles. We are investing, as I mentioned, in design for manufacture, but we're probably doubling that investment in terms of the digital tools to drive this approach. And my last point is around the vertical integration that we have. Echoing Chris's point, we're very fortunate. We have a completely vertically integrated business from land acquisition all the way through to asset management, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you have two vertically integrated developers on this panel. It offers us a huge advantage. We're not reliant on a contracting supply chain that can make an opinion about whether this is the right way to do things or not, or whether it's cheaper to go traditional for a very narrow project window. We make those decisions, and we can make it holistically. I think that's pretty critical for large-scale delivery of offsite DFMA innovation.